The educational speaker today is distinguished Toastmaster Vijayalakshmi Soundararajan. She is a passionate Toastmaster, mother of two, a happy and content homemaker. She loves traveling. She is an ardent Ilayaraja fan. And on the theme of the day, she says this: "My tears of joy ran down my cheek when I first held my daughter."
Thank you. Hello again. As the TM already mentioned, we will be doing today's segment called the Deep Dive into Championship Speeches. We have a small presentation, but before that, a quick raise of hands. How many of you have seen the World Champion of Public Speaking contest? In the video, YouTube. Okay, good. So today, we are going to take examples from those championship videos and see what are things that stood out, maybe the edge over the others that made them champions they are today, right? So here are some very popular names. I'm sure most of you would have seen the videos online, the championship winning videos. And if you have a perspective to share, I'd really love to hear that. So let's keep the room interactive as possible. Shall we do that?
Yes.
Fantastic. So what do champions have in common? Rahul, please grab the chair. Sit. Thanks. What do champions have in common? Have you seen something? The champions have a speech. And they are not just a speech, they are lasting speeches, isn't it? I remember clearly the 2014 champion speech, Dhananjaya speech. I remember Jim Key's speech, he was 2004 winner. Right? So speeches stand out even after many years of winning their championship, right? So what made that speech special is what we're going to see today. Here are the champions and what they have in common. Number one, I have come to see over 13 years in Toastmasters that all the champions will have a compelling craft, will have a very compelling story to share. The stories, where did they pick, do you think? If you have listened to the championship speeches, these are stories from their life, from their own personal life, isn't it? How many of you witnessed Ashok's chapati making humorous speech?
Dosa.
Yeah, dosa.
Tin dosa.
How to make a tin dosa? Tin dosa. Oh, sorry, dosa. Then where was chapati? I think there was one person making chapati. Sorry, tin dosa. Okay, tin dosa. Mentally, there was a winner who made chapati. Yeah, okay. And he says it came out like India, map of India. Yeah. Okay, dosa making, yeah. Because Ashok has been in the kitchen quite a number of times. Yeah, maybe he attended the dosa quite a number of times. Yeah. They make simple life experiences and they crafted it into a compelling story, isn't it? And that's what champions did. So they all definitely crafted a compelling story. And like we have here, they're all different emotions, different stories. Some champions started their speeches humorously, and they ended up the speech on a very inspirational note, right? Some of them started on a very statistical note with some startling questions or probably some facts and stats. Then they ended up giving out a motivational speech, right? So out of all the emotions, they handpicked their life experiences, the ones that they wanted to share with their audience. So the one thing that made them stand out is they crafted a compelling story to their audience. And what else did they do? They made it universal. Now, there was one speech in our district that I remember very close to my heart. I love that speech. And this speech was given after the floods that happened in Chennai, right? The speaker was Hema Malini, and she gave a fabulous speech on the district stage as to how they had to go to their rooftop, ask for help, and then they were waiting for the food packets, and there was no power, no water indeed. They had to go through this trauma for about a week or more until things settled down and they were able to come back to their apartment homes, right? Very beautiful story, full of emotions, right? Beautiful story. But the story was not able to connect to the Sri Lankan audience there because they did not witness the same trauma that we did during the floods in Chennai. Right? So it is very important to pick a life-changing instance, yes, but it is also equally important to make it a universally appealing story, isn't it? So what are some of the universally appealing stories? We see some here, right? Love, dream, right? Maybe you failed in something and then you have attempted it and then you have succeeded, or you are still in the progress of succeeding, right? Love, dream, family, right? An idea, friendship, hardships. These are some of the universal topics. So the story that you're picking might probably lead you to somewhere there, right? It need not directly go there, but would probably lead you to somewhere there. So they pick up life instances and they give it a universal appeal spin. And that's what made it a championship speech. For today's presentation, I've only taken some 4 well-known championship speeches, both right, and we will discuss about that now. Yes, sir.
For making it universal, the example that you gave, won't setting enough context help about the example that you mentioned? So, if someone describes the floods, will there not be enough?
Very good question. The entire speech, probably it's still available on YouTube if you see under the entire speech of Hema Malini was highly dependent on her approach to what happened in the Chennai flood. I would honestly feel if she had given the gist about a hurricane, or like you said, the flood is a very common thing. The only thing that happened was we were able to relate to it emotionally because we just went through it. And that kind of an emotional connect was missing from the Sri Lankan side. It's a very common, yes, flood is a very universal topic, but the connection was missing because it recently happened to us, but it did not happen to the Sri Lankans. It's a universal topic only, but still she was not able to make the connection.
So what do? We change the topic, or we try to adapt in such a way that it becomes universal?
Like Anirudh said, flood is a universal topic only, but unfortunately it didn't happen recently. So what I felt is, if you take probably Aaron Beverly's speech, Aaron Beverly was talking about inclusiveness, right? If you observe throughout the world during that time, especially in the US, this inclusive question was arising from time to time. And I strongly feel that's the reason why Aaron Beverly won that field, right? So it's very important to connect to recent events, right? In a universal appeal.
The topic has to be chosen accordingly.
Accordingly, yes. Or maybe we can just tweak it a bit to, make it universal. Something very relevant to the recent occasion, I would rather say. Yeah. Okay, so here are 4 champions that I've taken for today's occasion. The first one is Jinky, my all-time favorite. And the second is Dhananjaya Hetirachi, our very own district winner. And then we have Ramona J. Smith. After a very long time, we had the stronger gender winning the championship. And then we have Mohammad Katani. I also have some instances of talent. Okay. Now let's look at what stood out. The title and the message, right? Now looking at Jim Key's title. Jim Key's title was "It's Never Too Late." It's never too late. Now the top title needs to be intriguing. It should not reveal everything in the story, isn't it? So if I say life is a fairy tale, then I can probably assume what the story is going to be. It is going to start something sad and then end on a very nice note, happily ever after kind of a thing. So it should not be revealing so much. Rather, it should be, it's never too late for what? Right? You should have the question as an audience. And similarly, Dhananjaya, I see something in you. Even after 7 minutes, he will not tell you what it is. That's the beauty of the speech. He says always, I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. Right? So he leaves the audience to find it for themselves. And that lies the beauty in his speech, isn't it? Ramona Smith's speech, still standing, a phrasal verb, still standing, isn't it? She actually chose this title, I felt, because her entire speech was based on a boxing space, in a ring. The entire speech was placed on a boxing ring. And finally, Mohammad Katani's power of words. If there is one speech that will stand as testimony to Toastmasters International Public Speaking, that is Mohammad Katani's The Power of Words. What a brilliant, how words can help us to fail or succeed in life, and that's the word. Now look at the title. Beautifully, they have tied the title to the message that we want to tell to the audience. So what they're doing is, after every instance, when they say, it's never too late, I see something in you. That is not just one time they tell you in their script. They tell it more than thrice. So eventually, it automatically settles in the audience minds. Is it the second time, the third time? The more number of times the audience heard it, it gradually gets observed in the audience mind, isn't it? It's never too late to follow your dreams, is what he says after 5 minutes. I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. He says after 5 minutes, right? And similarly, that's all the other champions as well. So the key here is choose a title and choose that fundamental phrase and see if you can happily marry these two entities. The title shouldn't be too revealing, and the message and the title could be one and the same. That's what I want to hear. Questions?
What are your thoughts on Aaron Beverly's another speech title, the long one?
Long. I think he purposefully created that just to create the buzz. Honestly, if you look at that, it does not make any sense. Again, Hema Malini did a very similar stunt. For a miser, there is this phrase, no? Someone who never stores. Who is the one who never stores, never shares, never something like that? The answer is a miser. Okay, so that was her speech totally. So she had it in her speech title about 20 words or not as a speech title. She did the same stunt. Honestly, more than just a stunt purpose, people don't remember anything about the speech title. We have the Ramona, very short, just a phrase, still standing, and she was still able to win, right? If the title could really bring out the meaning and the essence, tie the message to the title, I think other than that, it's just a stunt. Yeah. Okay, so let the title and the message sync with one another. Okay. Okay. Hook your audience in the first 30 seconds. We say this time and again in Toastmasters. We say this, the first 30 seconds are very crucial. What are some of the examples your mentors have told you to start this script?
Jokes.
Jokes.
Ask a question.
Ask a question. Yes. What else? Quotes question. What else?
Startling facts.
A startling fact. Humor. A short humor that will probably lead to the subject. Yes. Anything else? Or a show of a picture or a prop that will start or transition to your body of the message, right? These two people, for the first 20 seconds, did not utter a single word. And yet, they made an impactful start at the World Championship speech. Darren Tay goes on the World Championship stage, reaches to his pocket, pulls out a Calvin Klein white underpants, and just he wears them on the stage, and he stands like this in the power pose. And looking at that pose, people are like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? It's a World Championship stage. And then he speaks, and in the next 1 minute, he tells you, this is how he stood in his school days because he was bullied by his seniors. Now look at the picture and how much sense it makes, isn't it? The moment he tells you that fact, it just strikes you so hard, you're like, oh my God. It was no longer funny. When he did that the first 30 seconds, it was funny. Everyone was laughing. And after 1 minute, it was no longer funny. That was the message in his whole speech, isn't it? Don't worry, I usually sweat a lot. Yeah. Okay, so he didn't utter a word for 20 seconds, and yet he made a powerful impact. So the line here is, though we have seen proven results to start with humor, with questions, startling facts, or any other short story that lead to the subject, there are champions who prove to us that you can do it non-verbally as well and be impactful, right? Similarly, sorry, let's go to the previous slide. Similarly, we have this guy. He reaches out to his pocket, Mohan Gatani, pulls out a cigarette, and as he was about to light it, the first word that he says is, what? And people all are laughing. Like, oh, I'm not going to light it up. He said, and then he talks, because remember his speech title is Power of Words. He says, people dying of cancer is more, right? But what if I told you people dying of diabetes is more? If I pull out a snack bar, Snickers, none of you will be surprised, right? But now here I am just trying to let us know, you will know what is he doing and all that. He says all this and finally he says, oh, stop. I just made it up, right? So this entire 1 minute he takes you on a ride, starts humorously and then gives you an information and then tells at the end of 1 minute, everything was just made up. It was all just a line to tell you the power of words. And that was his speech. Isn't it? So here are champions who prove to us that a start in 30 seconds should be the most impactful one in your entire 5 to 7 minutes of speech. So far, so good. The power of 3. Now, these are my two favorites who implemented the power of 3 in a championship speech. Dhananjaya Hettiraj. How many of you remember Dhananjaya's speech? Dhananjaya's, okay, very good. Do you remember exactly where the power of 3 came in the speech? No? Okay. Anirudh? Jagdish? No. Okay. So he says, moms cry 3 types of tears. Tears of joy, tears of sorrow, tears of shame. When he says tears of shame, he touches himself because he wants to represent himself because he had just been to jail in that speech, right? So he says tears of joy, tears of sorrow, tears of shame, right? And similarly with Ramona's entire speech is power of 3. In the boxing ring, her entire life was divided into 3. In school, in college, and in Toastmasters. In college, in her life, and then in Toastmasters. So it was always divided into 3, right? She uses the stage in 3. Her entire speech is power of 3, right? So if you want to implement a power of 3, you should do that in the body of your speech. So impactful that it remains with your audience mind. And I did not see Dhananjay's speech yesterday. I remember this power of 3 since 2014. And that's the power, right? So Ramona's speech also stands out as the power of 3. It could be trials. It could be in terms of how you position yourself on the stage in terms of power of 3. It could be both. It could be verbal, non-verbal. But make sure you have a potential to use a power of 3 in your speech. See if you can use it somewhere in your speech. One force-fitted element in any speech is humor, isn't it? We have some humor champions here. I don't know if it happens only to me. If I give a humorous speech, people are staring at me. If I do an ISC speech, everyone is laughing. Yeah, I really don't understand. If I don't understand the parameters or I'm not acting according to the audience needs, I don't know. Humor is an essential part of any speech. No? People love to hear entertaining speeches. It just lights up the audience minds. So humor should not be force-fitted as what the champions have told us. Are you crying? Can someone tell me whose words were these? Which champion said this? In just about less than a minute into their championship speech. The movie theater was quiet. As I sat down with my family to watch our favorite movie, The Popcorn, it was Jim Key. So in the movie, something very emotional happens. And then there are tears in Jim Key's eyes. Okay? And then the little daughter, when the movie theater was very quiet, the little daughter looks at Jim Key and says, "Are you crying?" And the entire audience is looking at you in the movie theater, right? It's so embarrassing, but he does it so brilliantly. It evokes a lot of laughter from the audience, right? So, "Are you crying?" is an embarrassing moment for Jim Key, but it's a very humorous moment, a very light moment that he made it for the audience. Especially, remember this. Why? He was about to light the cigar, right? Why? And then everyone laughed. And then finally, what is this? I don't know. Dhananjay Hydarachi, exactly. Yeah. Raise your hand if you have an emotional moment. Put all your hands together, you get my mom, he says. Right? And he does the same thing for his dad as well. Do you have a cool dad? People say, yeah. Raise your hand if you have a cool dad. And then everyone will put all that hands together, you get my dad. Right? So humor comes very naturally, not from the speaker, but from the audience side. And who is evoking the humor is the speaker. A very subtle humor. Right? If you look at these features, these are not out and out humorous speeches. Humor is placed only when needed and only in limited quantities. And I think that's the key to how we use humor in an ISC speech. Very limited, but you just keep your audience engaged. That's it, and nothing more to do. We have a separate contest for that, we can do it later, right? Okay. Props, when used at the right time, in the right manner, and choosing the right prop may give you the edge over the others in the contest, says the contestants. Look at these props that they have used. Ramona used the boxing ring. Though she did not physically have it, she was able to get us to visualize the picture as though she was in a boxing ring, fighting the 3 stages of her life. Very beautifully done, right? The power of 3 again, hooks, dabs, and punches. She uses that, right? So boxing ring. This trash can Dhananjay Hydarachi uses. So there's this huge championship stage. There is this small trash can in the entire stage, in the middle of the stage, and Dhananjay stands there. He first starts his speech with a rose. He says, when you're broken, it's very easy to feel it this way. He just puts every petal in that trash can. Just a symbolic representation of how much you're broke and how waste you have gone into the trash, right? At the end of the speech, when he goes to the jail, he comes back, he transforms and all that. At the end of the speech, he reaches out to the trash can and pulls out another rose, a fresh one this time. And then he says, this is what will happen to you if you have people around you to encourage you. They can pick you up from the trash and make you to a new person. A beautiful representation, and no wonder he won that year, right? The trash can. And of course, the candle flame there. Oh yeah, this is the word that I was talking about. Look at Alan Beverly. What was the prop do you think Alan Beverly was doing? Exactly, the attire.
The dress allows for wedding.
Exactly. The wedding hall is something that he was asking the audience to picturize. But what he came there was a typical North Indian wedding dress, isn't it? Because his entire speech was, how did he go to a North Indian wedding? And how much he was included as a part of the wedding, and how much he liked that hospitality, the inclusiveness, and all that, right? So he came in that attire, and Beverly. Probably he's the only one color and nice in that championship stage. Everyone was wearing a blazer, right? Very apt for the topic that he chose. His entire speech was the wedding, right? So look at Alan Beverly there. He was not using a prop; he was wearing it. Right? It was one. He was even wearing it throughout the entire speech. So let your stage movements be a very transitional one. Move only when you're moving to one phase to another phase in the story, rather than a pendulum walk, right? So in icebreaker, we say, start from school, and then from your college, and then there, and then. So my mentor always says, start from the start, start from the center. You make a point, and then you move to your left. Then after an instant, you come back to the center. And then you move to your right. And then for your final closing, you come back to the center, close it to the back. Right? I've used this many a times and it has worked magically for me. Right? So when you're trying to use a stage movement, make sure you use it appropriately and move only when the story moves in your speech. And you when we say the first 30 seconds are important, let's also remember the last words are the lasting words. Champions have got their way of lingering in our minds through the last 1 minute, isn't it? Let's hear to one impactful closure that I love, my all-time favorite from Jim Key. Oh, hold on, sorry. Okay, so this speech, Jim Key talks about, why do you want to give up your dream? What do you want to be? So he asks a little bit, he says, I want to be the guy behind the trash can, the one who takes the trash around in a van. So he wants to be that. He says, we wanted to be so many things, right, in our life. Why did you give up on your dream? It's never too late to follow your dream. That's the speech, fundamental phrase and the title, right? He was inspired by a girl that he knew who wouldn't speak or hear, right? And but yet she spoke the most beautiful words that he had ever heard using her sign language. That's what he says. And this is how he closes this speech.
If you've ever let a dream slip away, I'm here to tell you, it's not too late. If you can summon the courage to overcome your circumstances and your experiences and your critics, your dream can live. Whether you dream of making beautiful music or not getting caught crying at the movies. If you dream of changing the world or riding on the back of a garbage truck. If you forget every word I've said today, it would thrill me if you remember this.
And just before he closes this is when he shares that story of how he was inspired by this girl who couldn't hear or speak, and she spoke the most beautiful words using her sign language. And he uses sign language to convey his message to the audience. So remember, as we said, for the opening, you need not have a verbal statement. It could be non-verbal, like Darren Kay or Mohammed Katani. Even closures can be impactful, says Jim Key, which are again non-verbal, right, through your actions. So that's for the impactful closure. And the one last slide that we have. Here are a few get knowledgeable leaders, and this is not just for the contest, but in case you're trying to do any speech for that matter in IC, just one more, I think, one more, yeah. Be very original. The content that these people have spoken, the theme may be universal, right? To never give up, to follow your dream is not the first time that I'm hearing, not just from Jimmy. I've heard the same thing over and over again. But the stories they chose, the humor they had, the impactful closures that they had was more what made them the champions. So let your thoughts be original. You can then elaborate your thoughts into by adding humor, quotes, or a starting fact. Remember, message is the key. No matter how long you're speaking, be it a 20-minute session or a 5 to 7 minute speech, your audience can remember only 2 to 3 things that you said for them. Right? So what is that one thing that you want your audience to remember? That is your winning point, right? So always let's remember, message is the key. Shamraj beautifully says, in a good speech, the speaker takes the message to the audience. In a great speech, the speeches that you always remember, the speaker is the message. The good speeches are the one when the speaker leaves and still the story stays with the audience, is what he says. Beautiful, right? So I hope this session, and that's all I think, I just have the email. Okay, I hope this session got you some of the gist as to what I observed in the championship speeches. Now let's open the room. We are just in yellow for quick thoughts on what was that one speech that inspired you and why. Any championship. It need not be a world championship speech. It could be a club area, division level speeches quickly. Anyone?
The speech, but I will be there. I don't.
Yes, the latest one. I will be there.
I don't remember she's a girl. I don't remember her name. Like her friend.
You like the speech, okay? Ashok sir?
I see something.
I see something always. Okay. What is the one thing that stands out in that speech?
The limited humor, the limited stage movement. He doesn't act too much like dramatic, running around here and there, all that. Because I'm a guy, I cannot do too much. Many other speeches, they do a lot of dramatics. So in this case, it was just like delivery content.
Okay. Rahul, you have any favorites?
I don't have a particular favorite on the championship speeches, but I saw evaluation speeches where he basically told that evaluation is treat evaluation like a speech, actual speech. It is not you are not talking to the speaker, but you are having an act and you are talking to the audience.
I heard it recently, sir.
The latest evaluation world champion. He told.
Okay, fantastic.
So he told treat evaluation like it's another act.
Okay. So evaluation, we don't have a world champion. Maybe district champion.
Maybe.
Okay, super. Yes, sir. Anyone? Yes, sir. No particular order. So
Even the other turnaround speech where
Sherry. Very good one.
The first speech which I see again, I see something. The one thing that stood out was his gestures. When he said
Holding the box now.
you're able to
Visualize it.
And if you ask me any other speech within our speak, I would say Shamraj Sini's speeches, but the recent speech
Click.
You spoke about holding the audience silence at the beginning. I like Selvaraj's speech in the district conference where in the middle of the speech, all he did was just breathe and
Please give me some
command the audience
silence.
And the audience actually felt that they were still a part of the speech.
What a perspective. Fantastic. Before I went on the championship speeches, I have heard some amazing speeches in the district. My first and most favorite is Arun Sridhar. Arun Sridhar gave a speech on honesty, how there was an honesty box kept in a school, and there was a challenge between the kids as to without paying money, they can steal the erasers and pencils and all that. He did that. He thought he won the challenge, but he was not able to sleep because he knew he did something wrong, and the whole story goes about the honesty. Very beautiful speech. I love Arno Chudani's speech, especially where she talks about you are beautiful the way you are. So she has this whole teddy bear with her, and she always felt she was not very beautiful. She's a bit curvy and all that, and she's sad about it. And her mom tells her, this teddy bear has become old. No? Many years you've been having the old this same teddy bear. It's very old. It's ugly. It's even torn and flipped. You should throw it out, Arno. Oh, it's my teddy bear. It's my favorite. This and that. And her mom said, this is how you are. You are beautiful to me. And maybe you're beautiful in many of the others' eyes as well, and so on. So that's a beautiful Shamraj speech. Come on. And there's one speech where he has this doll, he punches and the doll comes back. How many of you have seen that? Like, no matter how many times you're knocked down, you should get up. He has this, there's this doll, no? Yes, there's the one that stands on the sand, I guess. Yeah, he has had a beautiful speech. Beautiful speech. My personal favorite is also this guy, Shubhadeep Panik's magic speech. So his dad used to do a lot of magic for him when he was a child, and when he asked him, Appa, how did you do this? And his dad says, it's magic, it's magic. So he tells us to change things like that. And then Shubhadeep goes out of station to work, and he loses his dad to cancer. Right, and it was his mom's birthday, and as a surprise visit, Shubhadeep goes home. His mom's super happy to see him. He hugs her and asks him, "How did you know? How did you plan to come today? I wasn't even expecting you." He just whispers in her ears, "It's magic." That's how he ends the speech about. We're like, oh, it was like watching a Vikraman movie. All emotional, very well. So we have been witnesses to some amazing speeches, and I really, really hope and wish there is one session like this where people share the speech that you delivered in your club, area, division, district, or who knows, even at the World Championship stage. So a club is the one that produces a world champion. Good luck to all of you with your speeches. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Back to